Well, hello, friend. Isn't it good to be in this place of expectation? I can sense it, a stirring in this room, a sense of facing something that seems just too much. You've carried it in here with you, haven't you? A weight in your spirit, a diagnosis that stole your breath, a door that slammed shut and seems welded tight, a mountain that stands between you and everything you know God has spoken to your heart. You look at it, and your soul whispers, it's impossible. And I want to look you right in the eye tonight and tell you something. You are absolutely right. It is impossible for you, but that is precisely where God wants you. You see, we have it all backwards. We think the impossible is God's failure to come through, or perhaps a sign we heard him wrong. We treat it as a barrier, a stop sign on the road of his promise. We pray, oh God, remove this impossibility. And we believe that when it's gone, then we'll know he is with us. But I have come to tell you that the promise of God most often leads you directly to the impossibility. It does not lead you around it. That mountain is not in your way, it is your way. It is the very ground upon which he intends to stand and show you who he is. Think of it, the children of Israel, trapped, the Red Sea in front, Pharaoh's armies thundering behind, desert cliffs on either side. An impossibility of the highest order. Was that a mistake? Did God lose track of them? Oh no, he led them right there. He guided that pillar of cloud to that very spot. He wanted them cornered. He wanted them out of options. Because until every human option was gone, they would never look up and see the only option that mattered. The impossibility was the necessary canvas for the miracle of the parted sea. Or the boy with his lunch. 5 loaves, 2 small fish, and a crowd of thousands. The disciples saw the impossibility, the sheer, laughable inadequacy. Send them away, they said. We cannot feed them. And they were right. They couldn't. But their cannot was the prerequisite for his I can. Their lack was the stage for his abundance. If the boy had brought a feast from a royal kitchen, who would have seen God in it? No one. They would have complimented the caterer. But the little lunch, the obvious impossibility, meant that when the multitude was fed, there was only one explanation left standing. That is what he is doing with you. Your crisis, your lack, your closed door. It is not a sign of his absence. It is the evidence of his deliberate intention. He has allowed you to come to this place where your strength is irrelevant, where your wisdom falls short, where your resources are a joke. He has brought you to the end of yourself. And oh, I know it's a frightening place. It feels like failure. It feels like you've been forgotten. But it is the most sacred ground you will ever stand on, for it is the place where you stop so that he can start. We spend our lives building little kingdoms of our own ability. We stockpile our strength, our plans, our cleverness. And God, in his great mercy, often has to let those kingdoms crumble. He lets the walls we've built so carefully come tumbling down, not to destroy us, but to deliver us. He must show us that the foundation we've been standing on is sand, so that we will finally turn and see the rock that has been there all along. The impossible situation is the wrecking ball of his love, breaking down our self-sufficiency to make room for his all-sufficiency. So tonight, I want you to do something radical. I want you to look at that impossible thing, not with dread, but with a holy curiosity. Stop saying, God, why have you allowed this? And begin to whisper, God, what are you about to do? See it not as a wall, but as a doorway. See it not as your prison, but as his platform. That sickness is a platform for his healing. That financial desert is a platform for his provision. That broken relationship is a platform for his restoration. That dream that seems dead is a platform for his resurrection power. He is the God of the turnaround. He is the God who specializes in things thought impossible. But he cannot show himself strong in your life if you are still strong enough in yourself. He cannot be your everything until your own resources are nothing. This impossibility is his gracious, severe mercy, cornering you into the arms of his possibility. It is not a barrier to your destiny, beloved. It is the very context for it is here, in this place of human defeat, that the glory of God finds its moment to shine. God has you exactly where he wants you. Expand the key point 2 into a 1,000-word segment, flowing naturally within the speech and maintaining alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact. And don't mention Kathryn Kuhlman's name and write it like Kathryn Kuhlman is giving a speech in key points. Now, if the impossibility is where he wants us, and it is, then we must understand how we got here. We must look at the map of God's leading, because I see a question in some eyes tonight. A quiet, trembling question. If this is God's doing, then can I trust his promises? If following him leads to a dead end, then what good is the promise? Oh, but you must see the pattern. You must trace the line from the promise to the prison, from the word to the wall. For the pathway of God is not a smooth, paved road to easy street. It is a trail that often leads straight into the wilderness, to the very edge of the cliff. Let me show you something beautiful and terrifying all at once. The promise of God and the provision of God are two different locations on the map, and between them there is always, a great and terrifying sea that must be crossed. The promise is the start of the journey. The provision is the destination. But the path between? That is the testing ground of faith, the place where the impossible rises up like a specter to challenge the very word God has spoken. Look at Abraham. Go to a land I will show you, God said. I will make you a great nation, a glorious promise. And where did it lead him? For decades, it led to a barren tent and a barren wife. The promise of a son seemed to grow more impossible with every passing year, until Sarah was well past the age of bearing, until Abraham's body was as good as dead. The promise led him directly into the face of biological impossibility. Was God a liar? Had Abraham heard wrong? No. The promise was designed to confront the impossible, because only when the impossible was fully realized could the miracle of Isaac be fully recognized as God's work alone. Or think of Joseph. As a boy, God gave him dreams of greatness, sheaves bowing, stars obeying, a magnificent promise of purpose and position. And where did that promise lead him? Into a pit, into slavery, into a prison. For years the promise seemed like a cruel joke, a childhood fantasy mocked by the rusty chains of a dungeon. Every step deeper into that prison must have felt like a step farther from the promise. But can't you see? The prison was not a detour. It was the necessary. He had to go through the prison to get to the palace. The promise had to pass through the place of utter confinement to prove that no man's chains could stop God's plan. This is the anatomy of a divine promise. It has two parts. First, the word, that clear, sweet, undeniable whisper to your spirit. I will provide. I will heal. I will restore. This is my purpose for you. You cling to it. You write it on your heart. It becomes the North Star of your life. But then comes the second part, the journey. And on that journey, the circumstances begin to scream the exact opposite of the promise. The bank account screams you will not be provided for. The doctor's report screams you will not be healed. The silence and the betrayal scream you will not be restored. The promise and the circumstance stand facing each other, and the circumstance always looks bigger, louder, more real. And here, right here, in this tension, is where most people lose heart. They believe the promise only as far as their circumstances confirm it. When the road gets hard, they assume they took a wrong turn. When the sea blocks their path, they believe God has abandoned them. They turn back. They settle in the wilderness. They die believing the promise was for someone else because they could not understand the journey. But I am here to tell you that the sea is not a sign you're lost. The prison is not proof you're forgotten. They are the evidence that you are precisely on track. God's promise is a living seed. And what does a seed do? It goes down into the dark, cold, impossible ground. It is buried, it is hidden. To all the world it appears dead and lost. But in that very darkness, under that pressure of earth, the shell breaks open and the life within begins to reach for the light. The promise must be buried in the impossibility for its resurrection life, to explode into being. Your financial desperation is the dark ground for the seed of I will provide. Your broken body is the tomb for the seed of I am the Lord who heals you. Your loneliness is the winter for the seed of I will never leave you. The circumstance is not the truth. The promise is the truth. The circumstance is merely the arena where the promise is being tested, where your faith is being refined, where God's power is being given its moment to shine. So stop looking at the deadness of the ground and declaring the seed dead. The life is in the seed, not the soil. The power is in the promise, not the prison. God led you to this Red Sea because He intends to part it. He allowed you to be thrown into this prison because He has a key that no man has forged. The very fact that you are facing an impossibility is the greatest confirmation that you are standing on the verge of a miracle. The size of your problem is simply revealing the size of the God who is about to move. The promise led you here because the provider is already waiting. This response is AI generated, for reference only. Expand the key point 3 into a 1,000-word segment, flowing naturally within the speech and maintaining alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact, and don't mention Kathryn Kuhlman's name and write it like Kathryn Kuhlman is giving a speech in key points. Now, with that understanding, a beautiful and urgent question rises in the heart. What do I do? If I am standing at this Red Sea, if I am locked in this prison, if I am holding this tiny lunch before a hungry multitude, what is my part? The weight of the impossible feels so heavy, and we mistakenly believe the burden is ours to lift it. We think God helps those who help themselves, and so we put our shoulder to the mounter. In and strain until our spirit is exhausted. We try to think our way out, work our way out, beg our way out. We take the full weight of the miracle upon our own frail backs. But that is not faith. That is folly. And it will break you every time. Listen to me, child of God. Your assignment in the face of the impossible is not superhuman effort. It is simple obedience. God is not asking you to part the sea. He is asking you to pick up your staff and walk toward the water. He is not asking you to manufacture bread from stones. He is asking you to hand Him your lunch, however meager it seems. He is not asking you to single-handedly tear down the prison walls. He is asking you to lift your hands in worship in the dungeon, to faithfully guard the prisoners you've been given charge over, to interpret a dream for a butler when your own dream seems dead. Your job is the possible next step. His job is the impossible outcome. We get it all twisted. We stand before our impossibility and we cry, God, I don't have enough strength. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough wisdom to solve this. And heaven looks back at us with such gentle, patient love, as if to say, of course you don't. I never said you did. I asked for what you do have. I asked for your obedience, not your omnipotence. Go back to that boy with the 5 loaves and 2 fish. What was his part? It wasn't to feed the thousands. That was impossible. His part was simply to surrender what was in his hand. He didn't say, this is too small, so I'll keep it. He didn't say, I'll wait until I can afford to buy more. He gave the little he had into the hands of Jesus, and that simple, possible act of surrender was the catalyst for the impossible multiplication. The miracle happened in Jesus' hands, not the boy's. But the miracle could not happen until what the boy had was placed there. What is in your hand, Tan? 8? It feels so small, doesn't it? A little bit of courage. A weak, trembling yes. A single seed of forgiveness you can barely bring yourself to offer. A small, consistent act of kindness when you are drowning in grief. A decision to praise when your heart is breaking. A step to show up, to keep going, to hold on for one more day. That is your loaf and fish. That is your possible next step. You look at it and you think, this is nothing. This won't move the mountain. This won't fill the need. You're right, it won't. But when you place that nothing into the hands of the Master, it becomes the very material He uses to perform the everything. Faith is not a feeling of overwhelming power. Faith is often a trembling act of obedience in the face of overwhelming impossibility. It is doing the next right thing, even when that thing seems disconnected from the solution. Noah built an ark on dry land. The priests stepped into the Jordan River at flood stage. The widow of Zarephath used her last handful of flour to make a cake for the prophet. In every case, the commands seemed unrelated to the need. Build a boat, step into a river, give away your last meal. It made no logical sense. But it was the possible step of obedience that unlocked the impossible act of God. You are waiting for God to move, But I tell you, he is often waiting on you to take that first faithful possible step. He is waiting for you to lift your hands. He is waiting for you to speak the word of forgiveness. He's waiting for you to write the first check, to make the first phone call, to kneel by your bed and whisper, "I trust you." He's waiting for you to act on the promise, not on the problem. Your action declares your trust. Your obedience activates your faith. It is the spark that ignites the divine fuse. So stop staring at the mountain, trying to calculate how you'll ever move it. You won't. Look instead at your feet. What is the one thing God has been whispering for you to do? The thing you've been putting off because it seems too small, too silly, too insignificant in the face of the giant you're facing. That is your point of obedience. That is your walk toward the water. Do that. Do it now. Do it today. Do it in trembling faith. Bring your little and place it in his hands. Stop trying to perform the miracle and start simply obeying the master. You take care of the possible obedience, and let him take care of the impossible outcome. Expand the key point 4 into a 1,000-word segment, flowing naturally within the speech and maintaining alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact, and don't mention Kathryn Kuhlman's name and write it like Kathryn Kuhlman is giving a speech in key points. Of course. Here is the expansion of key point 4, crafted in the requested style. Isn't it strange the burden we carry? Even when we say we trust him, even when we try to hand it over, we find our minds circling back to that impossible thing, like a moth to a flame. We lie in the dark and we rehearse it. We sit in traffic and we argue with it. We take long walks and we try to solve it. We have surrendered it with our mouths, but our hearts are still in the boardroom, holding an emergency meeting about it. And the toll it takes. Oh, you can see it. The weariness around the eyes, the tension in the shoulders, a spirit that feels like a clenched fist. We are so busy carrying the burden of the outcome that we have no strength left for the joy of the journey. But what if I told you that the greatest act of faith is not a furious striving, but a deep settled rest? What if the most powerful thing you can do in the face of the impossible is to truly, completely let go of the steering wheel? We misunderstand surrender, you see. We think it's passive. We think it's giving up. We think it's a white flag of defeat waved at heaven. But oh dear heart, it is the very opposite. Surrender is not the cessation of activity. It is the relocation of authority. It is the active, deliberate choice to transfer the title deed of your problem from your name into the name of Almighty God. It is saying, this is no longer mine to manage. The outcome is no longer mine to engineer. The timing is no longer mine to dictate. I am stepping down from the throne of this situation, and I am inviting you to take your rightful place upon it. That is where the peace comes from. Not from the absence of the storm, but from the presence of the captain in the storm. It is the peace of knowing the one who holds the outcome is infinitely more capable than you are. You are trying to manage a cosmic crisis with a finite mind and a trembling spirit. He holds the universe in the palm of his hand. Your management has brought you sleepless nights and a knotted stomach. His management parts seas and raises the dead. Which one do you truly want in charge? Look at Jesus in the boat with his disciples. The storm is raging. The waves are crashing. The boat is filling. And where is he? Asleep on a cushion. Asleep in the middle of the impossible, terrifying storm. He is at perfect rest. Why? Because he knew who was in control of the winds and the waves. He was not ignorant of the danger. He was confident in his authority over it. His peace was not dependent on the calmness of the sea, but on the sovereignty of his Father. And then he stood up and spoke a word, and the impossible became as still as glass. That is the exchange he offers you tonight. He is not asking you to pretend the storm isn't there. He is not asking you to muster up some fake plastic SMI. He's inviting you into the stern of the boat, to curl up in the shadow of his presence and to find a rest so profound it defies all your circumstances, to lay your head down on the pillow of his promise and sleep, truly sleep, while the wind howls. Your striving, your worrying, your frantic planning, it is all a form of unconscious unbelief. It is you saying, I know you said you would handle it, but just in case I'd better keep my hands on it too. But faith says, if your hands are on it, then mine can come off. It is the active, willful choice to unclench your fists, finger by tired finger, and to open your empty hands to heaven. It is saying, Lord, I release it. I release my need to understand the how. I release my demand for the when. I release my blueprint for the solution. I trust you not only with the problem, but with the process. And in that moment of release, a river of peace that makes no earthly sense will begin to flow in the very center of your storm. It is a peace that guards your heart and your mind, not by removing the enemy from the field, but by assuring you of the victory that is already won. This is the practical work of faith. It is choosing, moment by moment, to take the thought of worry captive and replace it with the truth of his faithfulness. It is waking up and saying, this day and its outcome belong to you. It is catching yourself rehearsing the disaster and consciously changing the tune to a hymn of trust. It is the discipline of thanksgiving in the midst of the need. It is not a one-time prayer. It is a daily, sometimes hourly posture of the heart. You surrender the control, and he supplies the calm. So tonight, feel the weight of that burden you've been carrying. Name it. Feel its sharp edges and its terrible gravity. And then, with a prayer that may be more groan than words, lift it. Lift it from your shoulders and place it into the hands that were scarred to carry it for you. And then walk away. Don't look back to pick it up again. Your shoulders were not made for that weight. His were. You were made for trust. You were made for rest. You were made to live in the perfect, impossible peace that comes only when you are finally, fully, and forever out of the management business and safe in the arms of the manager. Expand the key point 5 into a 1,000-word segment, flowing naturally within the speech and maintaining alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact, and don't mention Kathryn Kuhlman's name, and write it like Kathryn Kuhlman is giving a speech in key points. Now, when you have done that, when you have surrendered the burden and taken that first obedient step into the unknown, you must do something crucial. You must open your eyes. You must become a watcher. For God is a God of suddenlies, and his provision rarely arrives the way we have prescribed it. We stand there, our hands empty, our plans surrendered, and we stare at the wall we've been facing, expecting God to make it vanish in a puff of smoke. And sometimes he does just that. But more often, my friend, he opens a door in the wall that we never saw was there. A door we weren't looking for, because we were too fixated on the wall itself. Our gaze has been locked on the problem, but God's solution is often approaching from an entirely different angle, and if we are not watching, we will miss the moment he makes a way. Think of the children of Israel, trapped at the Red Sea. They were staring at the water, a massive, uncrossable barrier. They were listening behind them for the sound of chariots. Their entire focus was on the two visible, impossible fronts. But God's deliverance didn't come from turning the sea into a bridge of stone from the sky. It didn't come from making their feet like wings to fly over it. It came from a relentless east wind that blew all night long. A wind. They were looking for a miracle in the sea or in the sky, and God used the very air they were breathing. He used the unseen element. He made a path not by removing the water, but by piling it up on either side, creating a corridor through the heart of the impossible. If they had not been ready to move when Moses gave the word, if they had been paralyzed by their own idea of how escape should look, they would have missed the make-way moment. This is the posture I want for you tonight, one of holy expectancy. You have obeyed, you have surrendered. Now you must watch and you must be ready to move. God's provision for your need may not come as a check in the mail. It may come as a stranger's kindness, an unexpected opportunity, a scripture that leaps off the page with new life, a deep, irrational peace that tells you to wait just one more day. His healing may not come in a dramatic, instant sensation. It may begin as a thought of hope where there was only despair, a faint strengthening of a withered spirit that gives you the courage to get out of bed. His restoration may not come with a grand apology from the one who hurt you. It may come as a divine dissatisfaction with your bitterness, a sudden capacity to forgive that you know did not originate in your own heart. These are the make-way moments. They are the gentle, often quiet openings in the wall They are the parting of the waters at your feet, and they require something of you. They require recognition, and they require response. You must have the spiritual discernment to say, this is God, this is His hand, this is the way He is making. And then you must have the courage to step into it, even when it looks strange, even it feels risky, even when it isn't the path you would have chosen. Too many people pray for a miracle with their eyes tightly shut, with a specific script in their mind. They want God to perform according to their stage directions, and when He begins to move in a way that doesn't fit their script, they dismiss it. Oh, that's just a coincidence, they say. That's just my own imagination. And they let the moment of deliverance pass them by, all because they were looking for a pillar of fire when God sent a gentle breeze. Elijah on the mountain waited for God. A great wind tore the mountains apart, but God was not in the wind. An earthquake shook the rocks, but God was not in the earthquake. A fire blazed, but God was not in the fire. And then came a gentle whisper, a still small voice, and that was where Elijah found Him. You must train your spirit not to be dazzled only by the dramatic, but to be sensitive to the whisper. The make-way moment is often not loud. It is a nudge, a divine coincidence, a closed door that redirects you to an open window, a word from a friend that pierces your heart with truth. It is the Red Sea parting, not with a spectacular explosion, but with a steady, all-night wind. So tonight I charge you, begin to look with new eyes. Stop staring only at the monolithic problem. Start scanning the horizon. Start listening for the whisper. What small thing has happened recently that felt like a touch of grace? What opportunity, however small or strange, has presented itself? What scripture has been following you around? What person has come to mind? That may be your east wind beginning to blow. That may be the first trickle of water before the wall of the sea is piled high. Your faith has brought you to this place of surrender and obedience. Now let your hope sharpen your vision. God is already at work. He is already making a way. Your dell. Ivorance is already in motion. It may be developing in the unseen realm, like that wind gathering force over the waters in the dark. Don't grow weary. Don't become cynical. Don't assume that because He hasn't moved according to your timetable, He isn't moving at all. Stay alert, child of God. Your way is being made, even now, in ways you cannot yet see. Expand the key point 6 into a 1,000-word segment, flowing naturally within the speech and maintaining alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact. And don't mention Kathryn Kuhlman's name, and write it like Kathryn Kuhlman is giving a speech, in key points. Now, I want to tell you one of the most beautiful, most sacred secrets of all. This impossible journey you are on, this Red Sea crossing, this prison experience, this walk through the valley, it is not just for you. Oh no, that would be too small a thing for the heart of God. The miracle He is working in the hidden places of your life has a purpose that stretches far beyond the shores of your own need. The testimony He is building in you is not meant to be kept in a glass case, admired only by you. It is meant to be a tool in your hands, a key for someone else's prison, a light for someone else's path. You see, God never wastes a miracle. He never heals just a body. He restores a witness. He never provides just for a family. He funds a testimony. He never delivers just one person from a pit. He stations a rescuer at the mouth of that pit for all who come after. Your story, your specific, hard-fought, tear-stained story of impossibility overcome, becomes part of His divine inventory for a hurting world. You are being prepared to become someone else's provision. Think of Joseph again. Why the pit? Why the slavery? Why the prison? It was brutal, unjust. It felt like a tragic waste of a young man's life and a divine promise. But when he stood before his brothers in the palace, he could say with the wisdom of heaven, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." The prison was the training ground for the palace. The pain was the curriculum for his purpose. His personal deliverance positioned him to be the deliverer of a nation, including the very brothers who betrayed him. His testimony of God's faithfulness in the dungeon became the administrative policy of an empire in a famine, or consider the man born blind in the gospel. The disciples asked, "Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" They saw the blindness only as a tragedy, a problem to be theologized. But Jesus said, "Neither, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." The man's lifelong impossibility was, in fact, a divine appointment. It was a platform waiting for the healer's touch. And after he was healed, he wasn't just a former blind man. He was a living, breathing argument for the power of God. His testimony, simple and direct, "One thing I do know, I was blind but now I see," became a tool that confounded the religious authorities and shone as a beacon for other seekers. That is what God is doing with you. You are asking God, "Why am I going through this? Why this long night? Why this relentless struggle?" And he whispers back, "Because I am making you a living epistle. I am writing a story on your heart that someone else will need to read. Your financial breakthrough will be the blueprint for a single mother drowning in debt. Your healing will be the hope for someone else lying in a hospital bed, reading your words. Your restored marriage will be the counseling session for a couple on the brink. Your victory over depression will be the lifeline for a teenager who thinks the darkness is permanent. But you must understand this. The tool is forged in the fire. The testimony is birthed in the trial. You cannot have a resurrection without a crucifixion. You cannot have a powerful but God without a devastating but then. The depth of your deliverance is directly proportional to the severity of your impossibility. The greater the prison, the more astounding the release. The fiercer the storm, the more miraculous the calm. God is allowing you to walk this path so that you will have a story that carries weight, that carries authenticity, that carries the undeniable scent of His glory. This changes everything, doesn't it? It takes the focus off your own suffering and places it on a future ministry. It turns self-pity into a holy anticipation. You begin to look at your struggle and think, what tool is God forging here? What testimony is being written? It gives meaning to the midnight hour. It gives purpose to the pain. You are not just enduring, you are in training. You are not just waiting for a miracle, you are being prepared to be a miracle for someone else. So I plead with you, don't waste your wilderness, don't hide your healing, don't privatize your provision when God brings you through, and He will. You must turn around, reach back into the waters of your Red Sea, and pull out the stones of remembrance. Build an altar with them, and then use those very stones to build a bridge for the next traveler. Speak your story, share your struggle, show your scars. Your vulnerability will be your greatest strength. Your honesty about the battle will make the victory all the more glorious to those who are still fighting. You are not an isolated case of God's mercy. You are a connecting point in a vast network of His grace. Your breakthrough is a down payment on someone else's hope. Your faith in the impossible is a loan of courage to the one who comes after you. God is weaving your thread of triumph into a tapestry of testimony that will cover and comfort multitudes. So walk through this, endure this, trust Him in this, not just for your own sake, but for the sake of the ones who are watching you, who will one day sit across from you with tears in their eyes, clutching their own impossibility. And you will look at them with the calm of one who has seen the sea part, and you will say, "Let me tell you what God did for me." And in that moment, your past pain will become their present promise. Your story is not your own. It is His instrument of deliverance for the world.